Alright, man, this is episode number 50 of the Cozy Corner of Cinema. This is being recorded on Sunday, March 12th, 2023 at 3:04 p.m. Tonight is Oscars night. We're going to see who wins what. We're going to see who comes home with the big prize for Best Picture, Best Actor, Best Actress, all that good stuff. I'm not as familiar with what exactly is nominated outside of Best Picture. I know the big ones like Austin Butler, Kate Blanchett, Brendan Fraser, Paul Mescal, Colin Farrell. I believe they're all nominated. Some of the other ones I know for the new Jerzy Skolimowski film EO is nominated for Best Foreign Film. Fire of Love and All the Beauty and the Bloodshed are nominated for Best Documentary. I'm not going to watch it live. I just have always found it to be quite a tedious chore to actually sit down and watch it live. I mean, the only benefit would be that you're going to be the first one to find out these winners, man. And in between, during those commercials, you use that opportunity to get some writing done, get some reading done. You take every opportunity you can. You're not sitting around watching the commercials or anything like that. It's just all nonsense. But yeah, man. So we'll see what happens. You know what? I got no. I'm always awful with my predictions, man. Every time I'm somewhat confident, and I'm going like, oh, of course that film's gonna win or that actor's gonna win. I'm always off. So we'll see what happens, man. It'll be fun to discuss who wins what should have won this or that. It's all in good fun. And at the end of the day, it gives us films that we may have not seen previously that are now on our radar to watch. The snow is pretty much melted away at this point. There's only fragments of what once was that are out there now. It's starting to get a little warmer. We're going, I don't know when exactly spring starts. I think around April or so, or maybe even May. I actually have no idea. But it's starting to feel a little bit warmer. And with the snow being melted, man, it's all the holes in the road. Oh my goodness gracious, man. If you're out there driving, make sure you're paying attention to that. Don't be on your telephone. Don't be distracted by any other kind of nonsense, man. I swear, man. There's been a couple times where I'm sure the guy behind me probably thought I had a couple of pints before I got behind the wheel, man. Because I'm going all over the road, avoiding the potholes. It's wild, man. You get that moment, you just hit it with your wheel, and you just see, you're looking at that tire light, praying that, hey, man, don't come on if it's not already on from the frigid air out there. So just be careful of that, man, if you're going out there and doing what you need to. I try not to go out if I don't need to, man. And just unless it's an emergency or something like that, or something I need. Like yesterday, I ran out to the store because I needed something that day when I know I could have just ordered it on Amazon or any other website. But man, you do what you can. Now I don't typically talk about brand new wide theatrically released films. I've talked in the past about other films that I had seen that maybe I thought should get a little more attention that were new at the time. Like I remember talking about like Hold Me Tight when that came out, and I'm not. I think more so I don't talk normally as much about like completely mainstream 3,000 plus theater kinds of films, but I figured I talk a little bit about this one. It's a film series that's very near and dear to me. And last week I saw Creed 3, directed by Michael B. Jordan. And, I briefly talked about the Rocky series, like, just very briefly on one of the Blu ray episodes, which, by the way, man, before I actually go into it, I was in Target yesterday and I just wanted to have a quick look at the Blu-rays. And, man, I tell you, every time I go in there, they just keep shrinking it down more and more. I mean, before the last time I was there previously, they had a little what they call I don't, it's like a little display in the front. I remember we used to call them transformers. I don't know if that's what the actual name was, but there'd be a little display in the front, and then you'd have there was like an aisle. So I go to check there this time, and it's the little display that's only somewhat filled. There's a lot of missing spots on it. And on the end of the aisle, there's like some TV box sets of just some television shows. And My gosh, man, it's such a sad sight. And some of the prices, man, are wild as hell. They were asking like I think $70 or something for the Rocky 4K collection. I'm like, man, I mean, I don't even price match it. I'm just like, that's wild as hell, man. Because on Amazon it's like $50, and even on the website I think it was cheaper. Um, yeah, man, it was just a real shame seeing how much of that is just gone, man. But talking about Creed 3, it made me remember that. But I don't. I try not to choose favorites of anything. I mean, I know that's hypocritical of me to say when I have the top 10 list videos I do every month, but I don't take those quite as seriously as maybe if somebody asked me, what's your favorite film, used to have an answer, but now I can think of favorite films, but a number one, I don't think I really have, man. I love many different films for many different reasons. I made a little 100 favorite films list by year on my Letterboxd, and because I can't really quantify exactly what emotions I can't compare two different kinds of films. I look at some of my favorite films that maybe could be favorites, like Taxi Driver or Picnic at Hanging Rock, Death Wish 3, Cannibal Holocaust, The Wild Bunch, Suspiria, all these great films. But one of them that was definitely considered my favorite film for a while, and really I've only gotten rid of that for that moniker, because I don't really like to say that this film is one I prefer above every other, because it's just not true. But John Avildsen's Rocky was one that it's not just the first film, but the whole franchise is very near and dear to me, man. I think that there's just these, above all else, the first film is just a total masterpiece. It's just great character writing. These characters you like, you want to root for. It goes beyond just being a traditional sports tale of just this character rising. It's more of just this character study and the people around him who he affects. But I end up liking all the films in the series, man. If I was briefly go through them, I'm not gonna go too in depth about them because I want to talk about Creed 3. But just for some context on each of them, I think first Rocky is a total masterpiece. It's just it's brilliant, man. It's written by Stallone, directed by John Avildsen, who would go on to direct stuff like The Karate Kid, and he didn't direct The Lords of Flatbush, did he? I might be completely wrong about that. I don't think he did. I want to actually look that up. Oh, you know what? Yeah, I don't know why I'm thinking Lords of Flatbush. I was just talking about the film Joe the other day, from 1970 with Peter Boyle, which was a terrific film as well. I don't know why I was thinking Lords of Flatbush with Stallone and what's his name? Gosh, I'm blanking on the name. Dude, my memory, man, it's like it comes and goes, man. Just like I just forget names lately. But yeah, total masterpiece. It's just fantastic. Rocky 2 is good as well. I got some problems with some of the thing with Rocky 2 that always kind of rubbed me the wrong way. Two big things, really. Number one is that in the first film, you have this character, Apollo Creed, Carl Weathers, who gives his underdog a shot. But Apollo Creed, he's narcissistic, he's full of himself, but he's not like a bad guy. He's just like, this thing is really a gimmick to him, a heavyweight champ versus this guy who's like a local hero, local legend. Not even a local legend. I mean, it's really more just like a local guy. It wasn't until later he became more like respected. But in the first film, Rocky's working for, I think it was like a loan shark he was working for or something, and no one really likes him, no one respects him. He tries to do the right thing, takes this little girl Maria home, and she's kind of like, hey, screw you, creepo, and he's like, yeah, but it worked, man. And then in the second, because even at the end of the first film, I can't remember the exact line, but it was a little brief thing where it's 80 yard, where Apollo says like something like, "Hey, good job," and then Rocky says something back. And in the second film, it's like guns blazing. Apollo's like, he's pissed off. He's like, "Hey, man, what you did, that was a million to one, and even though I won it, I didn't, I should have knocked you out or something like that." So Rocky's like, "Nah, man, I'm retiring. I wanna hang out with this girl Adrian. Life is good." And he watched the film and he's a big success, and then the tone of it I always thought was real. It didn't totally work for me, man. The tone is a little back and forth. I think the is it the darkest of the main six? Maybe, I don't know. I think maybe not, actually. The more I think about it. But it's the one where we see, Rocky is way more down on his luck. It's just, it wants to have that sort of, he's hit the top, he's back down, he's got to, work his way back up again. He's like, he finds himself working back, like, with Polly. He's finds himself, like, working in the meat factory and stuff, and things are just not going well. And it's not a bad film. I actually like it quite a bit. The final fight is solid, but it's not what I would have done with the film, man. Rocky 3. Yeah, I gotta speed this up. I gotta get to Creed 3. Rocky 3 is, in my opinion, maybe the most forgettable of the films, but it's very enjoyable as well. I think this is where Stallone, the Hollywood star, kind of started to battle with the character of Rocky. 3 and 4, I always felt, of all the films in the series, these feel the least like the character of Rocky, man. I mean, I know he still has that charm and that charisma, but these feel more like Stallone vehicles of just we have this series now. But Rocky 3 is good. It's not bad. Rocky 4, I mean, it's completely over the top. The montage sequences are nonsense. You got a robot for Paulie. Paulie gets kind of lost in the shuffle. I thought there was a good dynamic in Rocky 3 where Paulie really is just, he's overshadowed by the success of Rocky. He just is annoyed by it. There's a great sequence early on where he smashes the pinball machine, beautifully directed. And in 4, he's just kind of there. It felt like a character they needed to have him there. But Rocky 4, I mean, it's kind of become a bit of a cult film because it is just so, at times, ridiculous, man. I mean, it's like the Cold War with, it's all just ridiculous. You have this insane machine, Ivan Drago, and it's wild as hell, man. It's very over the top. I do really enjoy the Rocky versus Drago director's cut that Stallone did a couple years ago. Now, Rocky 5, and here's where you might think I've taken the crazy pills, but I think Rocky 5 is very good. John Avildsen's back. Still, this feels, since probably 2, this feels like the closest return to Rocky as a character, where he's changed. He has changed, but he's still that guy where, his son is getting into fights at school, and Rocky's not really, paying too much attention to him. Adrian kind of sees what's going on. His son, by the way, played by his real-life son, who's passed, Sage Stallone from Grindhouse Releasing, R.I.P., is very good in the film as well. I really like how this one, the final fight, it's not in the ring, it's in the street. It's more just about Rocky having to kind of find his place again, and even though he has this success, he's still trying to find his way around, man, and realizing that his family just means a lot to him. Stallone famously just hates this film, man. I think I think it's true he's working on a director's cut of this as well, which would be interesting to see what he does, but I mean, I might be in the minority on this one, man. I actually think this is a pretty solid entry into the series. And then followed up, this was 1990, and then Rocky Balboa, which I'm not crazy about that title. He did the same thing with Rambo 4, just called it Rambo, man. It's ridiculous. At least the 5th one is called Last Blood, But that as well, that doesn't even feel like the same character in that film. I like Last Blood, man. I actually thought if you just watch it as just a straight revenge film, it's brutal, it's mean-spirited, it's dark. I mean, it's wild, man. I think it's a cool film, but it doesn't really feel like a Rambo film. The ending of Rambo 4 feels like a perfect way to cap off the series without spoiling it. But then Rambo 5, it felt like they should have just called it something else. But Rocky Balboa, man. I love this film. I mean, I think this is my favorite of all the sequels. The heart, the emotion, you really feel the time pass on this one of a character who is seeing all his friends kind of, all his close ones really just kind of, lose him. He has Paulie, but this one, Adrian's gone, and he does this annual tradition of going to all these old locations, and it gives me chills, man, when he's like looking at the old pet store that's been closed for a while, and they flash back to the first film. Oh my gosh, man! The last time I watched this film, I was just so emotional watching. I don't know what it was, man. I think the last time I watched this it had to have been You know, I think I may have actually watched it after Creed 2 as well. I don't know, but I love this film, man. Stallone writes and directs this one. What's his name? The actor I like that. Milo Ventimiglia is in the film playing Rocky's son, who, and you know, he's wondering what the hell he's doing at his age, you know, going back in the ring, and oh man, it's the first film in a while where the villain isn't really. I mean, it's the villain since. I mean, I guess really since Apollo, that feels like a real person, man. I mean, you have Mason the Lion Dixon, played by Antonio Tarver. I think he might actually be a real boxer. I really don't know. I think he is. Yeah, it looks like he is. He's not a villain, man. He's just the opponent, you know. He's just like, hey, you know what? I'm gonna be straight with you. No cheap shots in the ring. You know, you do this to me. You know, it's great. I really like the relationship that Rocky has with Marie, who's grown up here. But they make a point, you know, and I'm glad they didn't go in the direction where making it creepy. If he was like, you know, they're gonna kiss her, I'm like, what the hell's going on, man? There's a little girl. What the hell, man? I'm glad they didn't do that. You know, they make it very much. Maria knows this in the forefront that he is still grieving over Adrian, and one of the best sequences in the whole series right here is when he breaks down in front of Paulie talking about Adrian. It's beautiful, man. I also got to say Burt Young, he is great in this film as well. Although I do have a bit of an issue with they really. I mean, he gets fired from his job. And he's like, I don't know what I'm going to do. Hey, can I, do advertising? I do merch because he did it in the other Rocky film. And he's like, okay, yeah, you do it. And then it's like, all right, well, enough of that. So they really tossed that aside. Now, time passed, man. Time passed, and you got Creed from 2015, and I was like everybody else, man. Not everybody else, but I was apprehensive. I'm like, man, who gives a damn about the son of Creed, man? This seems like a cash grab, and it probably is a cash grab. But you got Stallone's not directing, but he's a co-writer. You got Ryan Coogler, who have I seen any of his films, man? I don't know if I have. I saw Black Panther. Which I wasn't a fan of, but that's more. I credit that to being more just a Marvel thing than a Ryan Coogler film. I didn't see the film he did, Fruitvale Station. I heard it was good though, but I never saw it. But I don't give a crap about Black Panther, man. That's silly as hell. I know he did. Well, he did that after the fact. I'm talking about at the time. I didn't really know who he was, but the film is flawed. It's flawed as hell, man. I'm not gonna act like it is a great film, because I don't think it's a great film, but it's pretty close. Michael B. Jordan is great in the role. Some of the writing in this film, man, is so solid. It has just one of my favorite moments in the whole series when Rocky is talking to Adonis, when Adonis finds out a piece of information, and Rocky's just talking about, you know, having to accept that he's getting older, and he's, you know, everybody around him is dying, and he's just, you know, he's just another. He's just like one of these guys up on that wall. It's a beautiful scene, man. But there's the back and forth between Adonis and Rocky. It works so well. Now, one thing that I don't think works almost at all in this film, but actually would go on to work well in the other two films, is the romance in this film between Adonis and Bianca, played by Tessa Thompson. I like both these actors, man. I think they're both good. And I think they're both good in the film. I don't blame either of them. But my God, man, any time they cut to those scenes and them being romantic, that slowed the movie down to a halt, man. I did not give a crap about their relationship in this movie. In the first film, it works because Rocky has a connection to Adrian. You know, he's Paulie's sister. He feels bad for her because she's not taking it seriously. They call her slow and stuff. But it's very sweet when she starts to break out of her shell and open up to him. And she has that great scene where she yells back at Paulie, like, "I'm not a loser." You know, it gives me chills to think about it. In this film, I like what they do with Bianca. You know, she's going deaf. She's running out of time to make her music, something they don't even really follow up with in the sequels. It just does not work well. The second that she opens that door and he's like, "Hey, I'm Adonis," I'm like, my God, can we get back to the film? But the villain as well, I love what they do with the villain here. Pretty Ricky Conlon. He's a loudmouth. He's a son of a bitch, but he expects what he does. He plays it up. He's like a Conor McGregor. It's like, you know, he's cocky. He gets in your face, but you just love to hate him. Conor McGregor's the man, by the way, but he is good in the film, and they do a great thing at the end of this film as well. Kind of like, hey, you did good. Creed 2, I think I like more than Creed, man. I gotta say, it is still not. I don't think it's still great. I think this and Creed feel a little long. And Creed 2, one of the big problems that it really does feel. It takes a lot from Rocky 4, and in terms of the plot structure, in terms of the fall, he's at the top, he's rising, then the fall, and then he's got to go back and get back, but it is solid here. I like with this film, what they do is that, as silly as Rocky 4 was, what Creed and Creed 2 have done, and I want to say I really like these films. I'm definitely not dogging either of them. I really like both these films. But what I really like that Creed 2 did was he took the silliness of Rocky 4 and really it brought it back down to earth. They made Ivan Drago a real person in this one. He's not just a machine. They talk about how he was basically outed, when he lost in Rocky 4. Him and his son, Victor Drago, who is very good in the film as well. He feels like, these actually feel like people, And there's a great scene when, in this one where Ivan he and Victor are trying to, well, Ivan wants to be accepted again. Victor really kind of sees through all of this, and he's just like, no, man, these people turn their back on you. What the hell are you doing going back to them? And really like this film, man. When I say the relationship stuff in Creed didn't work for me, I think it almost totally worked for me here. That the charisma is really there. I really like the one of the early sequences in the film when Adonis gives a big speech to Bianca, and when she's in the bathroom, and I won't spoil how that scene ends, but it's heartfelt, but it's also funny, and they have a really great subplot where about his daughter possibly being deaf, and Rocky's like, hey man, you gotta love this kid like you ain't never loved no one before, man. It's beautiful. I think the ending of the film is incredibly touching. I mean, the final moment, the final sequence that Rocky is in this film, first time I saw it, man, it put me in tears. I thought it was a beautiful way. And I'm like, this is how the character should be sent off. This should be it. Now, cut to Creed 3, and I wanted to talk about it earlier. I've wasted 20 minutes talking about all these damn films, but Creed 3, man, I was apprehensive again. Because Stallone is not in this film. There's a big falling out between him and Ern Winkler, one of the producers in the film. He also said the script was not where he would have gone with it. It was a little bit darker than he wanted to. And Michael B. Jordan directs. I gotta say, in this film, which I find funny, they're talking about in the first film, Bianca's going deaf. In this film, they don't even bring it. They're just like, oh, I'll be deaf one day. She's in the studio in this film, and I'm thinking, man, I thought you were supposed to be deaf 2 movies ago. This kid's grown up. Jeez Louise, man. She still ain't deaf. The daughter is like 5. My God, man. But all the relationship stuff worked. I thought the villain was pretty good in this. Pretty good, not great. It's this guy who's, I've been seeing him pop up in a lot of stuff lately. I just watched him in that Western for the 2018, or was it 2021 list? The Harder They Fall. What the hell is this guy's name? Jonathan Majors. I think it was in the new Ant-Man as well. I thought I saw him in the trailer, and I didn't see the movie. I really like him, man. He's very good in the film. I had mixed feelings about, they do a good job as well. All 3 of these films do a good job with humanizing the villains, and actually they do a nice little thing. It's not, okay, this isn't a spoiler, man, but if you don't want to know, something, then just skip ahead. But they bring Victor Drago back, and him and Adonis they're on good terms now, and and same with Pretty Ricky Conlon. And I thought it was a little weird how they kind of, they didn't really spend a whole lot of time on it, but Victor's dad killed Adonis's dad. I would have liked any kind of piece of dialogue that would have had them kind of address, like, where Victor's like, I'm not my dad, man, you and I are good, I can't take that back, but I can try. Anything would have been nice. When he was in the movie, I'm like, what? They're friends now? All right, man. What was I saying before? The villain in this one, they try to do a bit of Rocky and Rocky 5, weirdly enough. They have his daughters, you get into fights at school, and Adonis is like, I think I'm going to train you and stuff, even though the whole time he's talking about how he's like, this is I'm done, I'm retired, this isn't, I'm not going to be doing this, and he's like, maybe I'll train my daughter. The villain backstory, man, it just didn't, it felt it felt the least interesting of the three, man. I'm glad they didn't do it where it's like Mr. T's son or something like that, because they could have done something like that, do nothing but these damn callbacks. It would have been terrible. The absence of Rocky, it's noticeable. They really don't even mention him. But when I say they kind of go back to the first film, like so the idea of like, hey, well, Apollo gave Rocky a chance. He was like the heavyweight champion, he was an underdog. It doesn't totally work for me here, man, because I mean, for one, I gotta adjust my chair here. Sorry, I don't mean to have a pause there. This chair, man, I wish you guys could hear this chair. Jeez Louise, man. But for one, man, it feels way more calculated. It feels like this is a guy who Adonis really doesn't know, man. And now Apollo really didn't know Rocky, but they were trying, but that was the whole kind of point, is sort of like, they're going through the paper at the beginning, and like, not this guy, not this guy. What about a local legend, this guy, Apollo Creed versus the Italian Stallion, sounds like a damn monster movie, And this guy, already right off the bat, Damien, he seems a little sketchy, man. I mean, I know, they have a past, so you can see Adonis is like, okay, I feel like I owe you one, but they never really address the fact, I mean, it takes a while for them to address the fact that, something that Adonis doesn't address, where, I don't want to spoil it, but Damien does something that he blames Adonis for, and they're riding that through the whole film, and then another character basically says, that doesn't even make sense, like, he's the one who did this, man, and I'm like, yeah, well, I feel like I don't understand why Adonis even feels that way, man. It just doesn't totally, work for me, man. I should have written down some of these notes. I'm kind of going off train of thought here. The fight scenes are solid in this one. I really like what they did with the end, having it be sort of like not even like a dream sequence, but it's very like the way they direct, Michael B. Jordan directs the final match is really interesting. I really like what they do. And as well, this is the first film in the series, I believe, they actually have, aside from like Rocky 2, I guess, well, in the same film, I should say, where after the fight, they have a man-to-man moment. And I thought that was really nice. I thought that was like, all three of these films they make interesting villains that are actually sympathetic to a point, because Damien is flawed. And he's not a great guy, but he's also he's not this monster, man. It's these complicated feelings of emotions of you're coming back and seeing somebody who has all this success that this character feels like they should have had, It's very interesting. I don't know. I don't think the film was good. I enjoyed it for what it was, but ultimately I don't think this quite has the emotion or really the strength of maybe the other two Creed films. When this was done, I didn't feel the runtime on this either. It went by at a pretty brisk pace, I gotta say. But this one, I'm not in an urge to rewatch. I may feel differently. I mean, I'll buy the 4K when it comes out. I already have the rest of them, or I have the rest of Blu-rays, whatever. But it was the one that I found to be interesting. I liked it. I'm with Stallone. I don't know if this is exactly where I would have taken it. It's not quite as dark as I thought it was going to be. I think. It's a little. It's not that dark, man. It's darker than the other two, but it's still fairly light, if that makes sense. But I didn't mean to talk. I meant to talk about some other stuff this episode, but I'm kind of running out of time here. So, the Oscars are tonight. Hopefully, you watched the films that you meant to watch, and if you didn't watch them, hey, man, you're still watching them after tonight. Ain't no one gonna be stopping you there. Make sure you're keeping your eyes on the road. Get off social media. Get to work on whatever it is you need to get working on, man. This is your time, man. Don't waste it doing nonsense and having a nonsense conversations with people who ain't worth the time, man. It ain't worth it, man. All right, well, thanks guys for listening to another episode. We'll be back this week. I don't know why I stuttered there. This chair, man. Jeez Louise, I gotta get this thing fixed. All right, man. Take care.